The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello friends, thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week, we'll have some Austin FC player news, and we'll talk about which current Austin FC players may and may not fit into a Jim Curtin system, and talk more about what that system actually looks like on the field. My name's Landon, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Bentley. I'm happy to be back. Last week, we were in San Antonio. We also went to Green. The boys had never seen Green Hall or that kind of stuff. Ate some German food in New Braunfels. Watched a guy play an accordion and sing German songs in a German restaurant. It was a pretty fun little trip for us to do, but I'm happy to be back. And another thing I've done a lot over the last week is watch a lot of World Cup action, which I assume you have probably done too.
Yeah, the schedule of the last couple of World Cups has made it a bit more awkward. The time of year that it's falling for me at work and the game times, I've kind of surprised myself by how much of it I have watched. I have watched most of the games. There's a couple of games I didn't see any of, but not many. And most of them I've watched at least some, if not all of them. So I've been going pretty strong, and I've just been giving myself breaks whenever I'm not feeling motivated to watch a specific game, and just saying okay, you don't have to watch this one. But for the most part, I've been pretty excited to turn it on.
Yeah, me too. And I didn't know what to expect at all. And I think we maybe even talked about this, like you just said, with the times and where we are and what might work. The ones I've had trouble with are the 11 o'clock p.m. West Coast games that maybe I'm not that motivated about. And I wonder if we're going to finally get, starting later this week, into the third round of group play where some of these games probably don't matter at all, if I will be quite as excited about it. But it's been a lot of fun so far. And then I've had a ton of fun just consuming all the social media content about it. Just the Netherlands fans and the Scottish drinking Boston out of beer and the Norwegians and just the joy that you can have in the world around this game. I think is my favorite part of this, in addition to a lot of the games being really, really exciting.
Yeah, FIFA can't ruin that part.
Right, as much as they try. That would be awesome. And then I noticed with the Netherlands, they were doing the march in Houston, and Houston's two of Houston's three professional sports teams also have orange as their primary color. So it's a lot of Astros and Dynamo mixed in with them while still fitting in with the vibe too at the same time. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I've loved it so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing on to the knockout round and beyond.
It makes it easier to enjoy when our team, I'm not saying our as in listeners, but Jeremiah and Landon's team is doing quite well.
Yes, for sure. That does. It would be, there have been more frustrating outcomes for this U.S. squad, no doubt. Well, let's talk about Austin FC news. And I feel like this is in the stretch with the World Cup. I feel like every week we wonder if there will be things to talk about or not. And still every week something manages to happen. So the big news this week is that Austin exercised a buyout on Robert Taylor.
Yeah. So this is Austin FC's second buyout of the season. If you remember back, they used the first one on Hader Obrian after that whole saga where he was, I believe they started camp and he was still in Colombia. Is that what happened?
Right. It was like he was just refusing to come back, and there were these maybe connections to a Colombian team. They didn't seem super reliable, and I don't even know what happened. I'm assuming he's probably playing for that team now or not.
He's not.
No.
We bought him out and he signed for a different team.
Austin has a lot of those players on the goal scoring list, as we've talked about, that are without club often. So I'm glad that he's playing for somebody else and not just sitting around as many of their ex-players are.
Yeah. So yeah, Robert Taylor was the use of that second buyout. It's not super surprising, but I think I am still a little bit disappointed about this one. How are you feeling? No, I'm not disappointed about the buyout. I'm disappointed that it had to come to that.
I was going to ask, are you just disappointed in sort of like Robert Taylor's career in Austin? We were just looking back, and in his time here, he's had 1 goal and probably 2 assists, which is definitely underperforming for like what Austin thought they were going to get. Is that what you're thinking about in terms of maybe what we expected from him and what we got from him? And then just, I think it's fair that Austin had to move on
Yeah.
from him and go another direction.
And I wouldn't be surprised if this had something, if not a lot, to do with his health status. If that injury he sustained in whatever game that was late on in the first half of the season, where it didn't look like he was coming back anytime soon, if it was something more serious, maybe he required surgery or something, or he's going to be out for another little stretch, that they just said, okay, he's only guaranteed through this year, let's cut our losses and move on. But I still really was of the belief that a healthy Robert Taylor could have been a useful piece to this team.
It's one of those great unknowns, and it seems like something that was never going to happen. And we did talk a few weeks ago about in creating roster flexibility, and we're going to talk about whether this actually creates roster flexibility or not. It seemed like Basard Sabovic, Robert Taylor were the two people that were at the top of everybody's list. As you mentioned, Sabovic, 1, has a longer deal. Maybe 2, has some interest somewhere else. So Austin can recoup something. So maybe that's why this is the move that Austin makes as opposed to another one. But yeah, I agree. It's disappointing. Now let's talk about roster flexibility, because you would think this creates a spot, but we believe that this just creates a spot for somebody at Austin, somebody who Austin has already signed, right?
Yeah, if the Przemysław Poheta signing is still happening, which I don't think we can assume that anything else but that it is happening, then that's just 1 for 1. And this is filling the spot that we already had filled before any of this happened. So yeah, it may bring up no roster flexibility, but we spent some time a few weeks ago on a show talking about like what moves could happen. And there's maybe some topics here in a couple of minutes that we'll talk about where some of these spots may still be coming in, but I think for now it's safe to assume that this doesn't do anything, but it gets us closer to the next move doing something for us.
Which feels like the story of this entire history of this club, right? Like this is a good deal if the next deal works out. And
Yeah.
too often the next deal has not worked out. Maybe making this deal without a sporting director makes more sense than when Austin has had him.
What do you think Robert Taylor's legacy is at Austin FC?
I don't know. Do we know how many total games he played? I mean, he didn't have a lot of impact on the field. I feel like a lot of it's just untapped potential or untapped contributions.
I'm looking at FBref matches played. I don't know how correct this is. FBref says 17 matches in 2025 and 2 in 2026. That feels wrong, but maybe it's not.
We're looking at 20-ish matches, 3-ish goal contributions. Certainly compared to like people like Emiliano Rigoni, it's not the worst match to contribution ratio we've had, but I don't feel like he left much of a mark at all in the club. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't get the opportunity to, unfortunately, but I think not. I don't want to tie this directly onto him because he didn't have much to do with what I'm about to say, but I think in a larger Austin FC perspective, his legacy is one of the biggest wastes of GAM that Austin FC has ever done. Because it was not nothing. I want to say it was like close to $900K with all the conditional stuff worked out for a guy who came in and barely played, and then you ended up paying him to go away. Like I've talked about how some of the national pundits were a little too harsh on Roto for complaining about not having GAM. This is an instance where he did throw away a bunch of GAM for something that ended up not working out.
Yes, absolutely. And one question that I have out of this is like, who makes this decision? I know there's some sort of interesting interim sporting, front office group in place. I would have to imagine that somebody gave Jim Curtin a call and asked how he felt about Robert Taylor and if he was a part of his plans or not before they make the move. But what do you think this looks like on the Austin side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine it's some combination of Anthony Precourt's office and whoever his people are, and some of the technical staff that is still here. So like Davey Arnaud, and then potentially some of the medical staff, if that had anything to do with Robert Taylor, saying like, okay, this guy's not going to be able to play for a while. Should we use the buyout here? I think for some types of moves, that's probably enough as far as like outgoing moves where maybe you were hoping to send them outgoing anyway. Like Anthony Precourt, I don't fully understand what business he's actually in, but I imagine the man has negotiated some kind of deal, or at least him and his people have negotiated some type of deal before. And that if it's just like, hey, can Robert Taylor play anymore this year? No. Or is he going to be out for half the season? And were we already kind of talking about doing that before Roto was fired anyway, and we still think it's a good idea? Okay, let's pull the trigger there. I think that could still be true with some of these next two players we're going to talk about as well, where it's essentially like, okay, these are players going out. Is the money right? Then great. Like, we're okay with doing that. And then probably, yeah, giving a call to Jim Curtin, like, hey, this was already kind of in the works. We were already thinking this. Are you cool with this?
That makes sense. Well, let's go on to a couple of the rumors that you've referenced. So I think the first one that we heard about last week was this rumored connection for Dani Pereira to Montreal, which originally to me seemed like just silly season kind of stuff, except for I think the source was somewhat credible Montreal related news source, if I remember.
Somewhat. I didn't know the name, but I tried to do some research to see who he was. And it's a guy who has done like radio broadcasting and actually worked for the Apple TV broadcast. I'm assuming doing the French language broadcast for Montreal, and then ended up being fired by Apple TV for being too critical of CF Montreal on social media. And so he's not really like a reporter. And so he's not a guy who breaks news, but he is very involved in the Montreal sports scene and has been there for a long time and has a lot of connections. So it's not completely out of left field. It is a little bit unexpected for someone like him to be breaking this kind of news. So it comes out from him. We're not sure what to think of it. And then we see We Are Austin TV saying they have sources confirming the talks between the clubs. And then shortly after that, they come out again saying, we have sources saying that Austin FC has rejected the bid. We can theorize who these sources are. I'm guessing they're pretty good if they are who I think they are.
The call is coming from inside the house kind of sources.
So yeah, it seemed like it was real and seemed like it's not happening. What was your emotional roller coaster here? How are you feeling through it all? Because I might have a controversial set of feelings on it that kind of surprised me.
Okay, well, I think one, I understand the math about like what you need to do to actually be able to build a roster, and I understand that probably selling Dani is going to be some part of doing that. But I'm going to be very, very sad when that day comes, because just emotionally, like, he's been a part of this club since the start. He's one of the faces of the franchise. You know, I've seen him and Brad Stuver do their little comedy bits like on stage and on social media, like, and I love it. And like, I love his energy and everything that he brings. So we'll be sad if it happens. And for this one in particular, and maybe you can disagree, but if we're going to sell Dani, I want to see Dani get sold to another country in a way that makes a difference for like what Austin can do on the roster, and see him go to another team within the same league and maybe like come back and play against Austin and beat us would make me feel really, really bad and negative. And that's where my emotions went on that. Is one, kind of get it. Two, I love Dani and I'm going to be sad no matter what. And three, if he's going to go, I don't want him to go somewhere on MLS.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, honestly.
Oh, okay.
I think the part for me is we've talked about this so many times, but like the puzzle pieces of this midfield just not fitting together. And the only way you fix it is by moving somebody on. Owen Wolf, especially now that he's coming off this injury, he's not ready to be sold, or at least not at the value that Austin FC is going to want for him. So it makes sense to hold on to him. And the biggest puzzle piece butting up against his that makes the midfield awkward to fit together is Dani Pereira. And so I started thinking like, okay, if we sell Dani, we get some allocation money, real money, whatever it is. And not only it frees up the senior roster spot, it frees up some TAM probably, because you remember Dani Pereira is a TAM player now. That means we could actually replace him with somebody fairly high profile or with a fairly high pedigree. And that got me thinking of like, okay, if he was gone, what pieces would make sense to bring into this roster? And it would be possible if that were the case. So whenever We're Austin TV saying, oh, it's not happening, the bid was rejected, I was a little bit like disappointed because I had already started building this whole new midfield in my head.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's like, okay, we have to make this work somehow, which hasn't really worked so far. And I guess will continue to not work until we can do something else in the future.
Till something else happens. Yeah, it was kind of funny that news would come out, and then that Owen and Dani would be making their appearances together at Domain Northside, taking pictures with fans. And I kind of had like you in the back of my head and thinking about like, what is Landon going to think about this particular thing going on? But they seem happy together at the Domain, if not productively in the midfield together. Well, let's go on to this other one, possibly out. The first part of this is like, this is relevant because the players are back in training and have been for a few days. I guess everybody except for Jaden Nelson. I was going to say all the Austin FC guys that aren't in the World Cup, which is everybody except for Jaden Nelson. And you happen to see, was this on social media or somewhere that Mirto Uzuni is not one of those guys who is back in training?
Yeah, that's the theory right now. We can't prove it, but the clues on social media point towards that he's probably not in Austin yet. So everyone returned. They did some social media hits. And they didn't post everyone immediately, but then I think Dani Pereira posted a photo from somewhere else, and then Mirto Uzuni posted a photo from somewhere else. And those were two guys who were on international duty, did some traveling for international duty, and so the theory then was they just gave them some extra time instead of like giving them their full 3 weeks break or whatever. Not long after that, Dani is back in camp, or Dani's back in Austin at least. And then we have seen he did this Austin FC appearance over the weekend. On that same day, I think on Saturday, Uzuni posts another photo. He has not appeared in any new social content. I think there's like a Father's Day thing where they use an old photo, but not any new photos from this new training camp that just started. And then Uzuni posts a photo where Kevin Morris spotted this. I'd like to give myself credit and think I would have noticed it if I saw it, but the thing that gave it away for him was it was like a pool in front of an apartment complex, and on the side of the building there was a bunch of mini split AC units, which is a thing that's like super common in Europe and lots of parts of the world and not common at all in the United States. So it very much looked like not America. I don't know if that means Albania or Turkey or wherever, but it very much looked like not the United States. And then I was digging through other social media posts and stuff, and I did not see any new photos of him. So from the evidence we have, I would guess he is still not in Austin.
And then what does that mean? I feel like we talked about this a lot, but it feels like the biggest thing you might be able to do to unlock something on this club in terms of flexibility availability is sell Mirto Uzuni for a not terrible price and sort of pull reset on that whole deal. Especially if you think Brandon Vasquez is healthy enough now with a break to hold down a regular spot in the starting 11 and play 90 minutes, if not close to it. And you have Christian Ramirez too.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just means like hopefully our wishes are coming true.
It's still a little bit frustrating because he finally, right before the break, became a little bit of what everybody wanted, but I feel like we've been teased by that enough that I'm just going to have to let that brief period of greatness go and look to the bigger picture.
Yeah, and like regardless of, he was in good form, but also, I mean, I was about to talk myself in a different direction, but Jim Curtin has done quite well with two forwards in the past. And so maybe it would have been a thing where he could have made this group of players work really well together, but I don't know. If the deal's there, I say you take it, and it seems like maybe it is.
Right. You're right there. It's just dependent upon like what's available and what the deal is. If it's a sale for half what we paid for him, no. If it's close to what we paid for him, that probably works out. And we don't know those kind of details. Let's go into the last piece of actual news. So we get, I'm going to have to look these names up again to make sure I get them straight. So we have Terry Bosch in, Nico Bosch out. And Terry Bosch is like a return, right? Because he was with the club before.
Correct. Yeah, Nico Bosch was the set piece coach for I think since Nico Estevez started. That he posted some photos on social media last week, and it seemed like he was out the door, but it hadn't been announced yet. And then we get this news over the last week where Terry Bosch has been brought back in. Bosch was an Austin FC assistant and the set piece coach in 23 and 24. And so he is now coming back. The announcement said it's until the end of 2026. And so looking like, is this a longer term thing or is this just for this year? I was looking through his history to see if there's any connections with Curtin. And so he did play a few MLS seasons, I think like 3 years in MLS. 2 of those years he played with Pat Noonan. I think it was in Seattle. And Pat Noonan was Jim Curtin's assistant at Philadelphia, so knows him well. And then Terry Bosch also had a brief stint with the U.S. men's national team under Greg Berhalter. And I believe B.J. Callahan was an assistant with the national team. B.J. Callahan was also Jim Curtin's assistant at one point. And so the old MLS ties, these specific people ties, it seems like there probably are, if not direct connections, a lot of indirect connections to Jim Curtin. Well, if that means anything or not, I have no clue. So Terry Bosch was the head coach of Lexington and USL. He was not renewed. Like I think his contract ended and he was not renewed at the end of 25. And it seems like he's not been working.
Just for 25, right? Like, didn't he go from Austin in 24 to Lexington in 25 and then get not renewed at the end of the year? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so if Davey is going to stick around, which it seems like he's going to when Curtin gets here, this could be an audition for Jim Curtin, but it really could just be a convenient stopgap. Like our guy's leaving, he sees the writing on the wall, and we're bringing in a new coach. New coaches usually clean house and bring in all their own guys. So Nico Bosch says, okay, I'm going to go find another job. Terry Bosch is out of a job and it knows the team, knows the facilities, knows everything. So like, hey, you're free. You want to come back for 6 months? And like worst case scenario, he's employed for the next 6 months. Best case scenario, he gets to audition for a job past that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Did you think, I was going to ask about the set piece, coach stuff for Bosch. I mean, I feel like Austin's been pretty good this year on those. Do you feel like we're losing something there, or maybe they'll retain that knowledge for the second half of the season? But I think you're probably. I was just thinking, like, why would you let this guy go? I feel like maybe you're onto something where it's like he had another opportunity and they let him go pursue it.
Yeah, I don't think he was fired. That's not what I'm reading between the lines on this one. I imagine, and Curtin even said this. He was asked a question in that press conference saying, like, who's your staff going to be? And he said, some of these guys may choose to pursue other opportunities. That's a nice way of saying, like, I don't know if he's saying this, but most coaches, when they come in, they clean house. They bring in all their own people. And so even keeping Davey on would be out of the ordinary. So keeping on multiple of the people who are already here that you don't have any connection to, you don't know, you didn't bring in yourself, would be very rare. And so I wouldn't be shocked if Davey was the only one out of this crew that stays on. All right.
Well, are you ready to take a break? And then we're going to talk more about Jim Curtin and his coaching style. Well, you set this up since you kind of wrote this next section.
Yeah. So I just wanted to, we talked a little bit last week about what Jim Curtin said himself about the playing style, but I want to get a little bit more tangible this week. And like, what do the numbers say about what a Jim Curtin system looks like? What does it look like to you as a fan when you're watching on the field? And then maybe more interestingly, which of our current players actually fit into that system well and which ones don't? Because I think there are both categories, but I think it's an interesting conversation to see like how well set up for a Jim Curtin system are we right now?
All right, well, hang on and we'll be right back.
When no one is around.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FEF Law.
FEF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education. And they have their own podcast called Summary Judgment that you can check out wherever you get your podcasts.
You can go to FEF.law to find out what makes FEF a different kind of injury law firm, and my understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's FEF.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. As a credit union, Amplify has no shareholders or parent companies. That means more of your money stays in the community.
Amplify has been the home of fee-free banking since 2022. Their free checking accounts come with 0 overdraft fees or minimum balance. That means Amplify's fee-free checking accounts help you get more mileage from your everyday spending.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your banking in at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more and to register for free parking at the Esperanza branch on game day, visit goamplify.com/moontower. All right, we are back. We're going to jump into what a Jim Curtin system actually looks like on the field, or what it has in the past at the very least, and then talk a little bit about how Austin FC players actually fit into this system, which I think is a scary thing to think about, but I don't think we're as far off as maybe I was afraid we were at one point.
Man, I love this analysis, and I think one of the good things about setting this up is I've had so many people who are like, even season ticket holders who are not super into it. They're like, what do you think about the new coach? Are you excited? Are you not? I'm like, well, yeah, it's Jim Curtin. And they're like, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, that means nothing to me as a casual soccer fan, but I'm glad you're excited about it. Then I usually go to like the 2-time coach of the year thing, and they're like, okay, well, I'm kind of getting on board with this, But I think for your average casual fan, I mean, even for like, people who are pretty into this sport, like you don't spend a lot of time watching teams playing in another conference. So like, I'm really excited about this discussion and the fact that you kind of dove in a little bit into what it might look like for Austin, because I think that it's really going to be informative. And I'm also super encouraged that maybe things aren't as dire as it seems like they might have been, given this, what has been widely talked about is like an oddly constructed roster. So let's just start with question 1. Like, what do the numbers say about what a Jim Curtin team looks like and plays like?
So I think a good starting point for this question is going back to the 3 R's that he mentioned. So it's red zone, rest defense, and restarts. I want to focus on the red zone here. And so it's that area just in front of goal. And he said that we're going to defend that area with our lives. And then on offense, we're going to put as many balls into that area as possible. I want to focus on the offensive part of that. So what the numbers say, this system is progressing the ball up the field quickly. And so looking at kind of stats where Jim Curtin's Philly teams, the good Philly teams at least, were sitting in the league, they were towards the bottom of the league in passes attempted and passes completed, which means they aren't moving the ball looking for one opportunity from a great area, kind of like Josh Wolf. Like, it was lots of passes trying to get the one shot from a great area, and that's the goal you're going to score. Jim Curtin's system is a volume game where they're looking for a lot of opportunities from a pretty good to good area. And occasionally you'll get them from a great area, but it's more so like we're just going to get a lot of chances, and some of them will be from good areas and some of them will go in. And so what that led to was they're towards the top of the league in shots on goal, percentage of shots on goal, and in some years they're towards the top of the league, if not top of the league, in goals scored.
Well, I think that will be a welcome change if this continues through Austin for a lot of Austin fans, because, well, one, it'll be great for those guys that sit in Lexus Club that scream shoot every time the ball is touched anywhere past over the half line. So I'm really excited for those guys. But to your point on the way the Josh Wolf team particularly played, I mean, that was a lot of the criticism, right? Is just a bunch of passes that ultimately lead to like a hopeful cross into the box that maybe gets to somebody's head or maybe doesn't, and just feels like squandered effort and intensity. So I feel like if we can continue this in Austin, that would be a good change.
Yeah. So talking about like what this application actually looks like you're a fan in the stands watching this happen on the field. What does that look like to you? Let's give just like an example. One of, I don't want to say ours yet. I feel like it's taking it too far of a step. A Jim Curtin player wins the ball deep. They will try to play forward quickly. Like oftentimes a Josh Wolf player, especially, and sometimes a Nico Seves player, you win the ball, you find an open player, you try to reset, get your shape, and then move forward. That's not what happens here. You win the ball deep, you will try to play forward quickly. If you find a guy open to feet up the field, go for it. But if you're under pressure and that guy's not there, sometimes it means launching the ball into not nowhere, but into an area, a specific area. And I think that's the key here. And so you launch the ball up. If that pass doesn't come off, that's okay. This is still part of the plan. Everyone's pushing forward, and then you fight for that second ball. So ideal scenario, you hit your striker on the chest, he brings it down, and he's in the attacking half. If it doesn't work, everyone's pushing up, you fight for the second ball, win that ball, and then again, you're going forward. You're not resetting, you're not getting your shape, you are moving forward. And one thing I noticed, I went back and watched a bunch of film of the like 2020 to 2023 Jim Curtin teams in Philadelphia. And a lot of what this looked like was, okay, I win that second ball. I'm not even looking up. I am turning and whipping a ball into the top of the box, like on the ground or wherever. And it's just the trust that this is where we're trying to get the ball. So I'm going to expect that my teammates are running there right now. And so it's a lot different from what we've been used to, but it means fewer completed passes, and it means a fair amount of plays that don't come off. Like a lot of times it just doesn't work, but that's part of it. Again, it's a numbers game. They're not all going to work, but if you get more and more of them, some of will work. And it is in a concerted way that is in the service of getting more shots in the red zone. And hopefully that means scoring more goals.
Well, then to that point, it depends on guys having decent soccer IQ too, right? Like the people on the receiving end, like people have to know. I mean, I get launching a ball into a specific location, but also guys have to know to be able to make the run to be in that location more often than not for it to come off.
Exactly. That's key to it. It's I'm launching the ball, but I know that the guys up top know that that's what I'm about to do, and they're getting ready for it. And the guys in the midfield ahead of me know that that's what I'm about to do, and so they're pushing forward to win that second ball.
Interesting. So let's go on to like what type of players, or like what, I guess personnel wise, what does it look like when the team's good, and then maybe formation wise. Although that's probably less interesting because we talked about formation only counts until the bullets start flying or whatever it was that people say.
I think formation is pretty interesting when talking about a Curtin team, though, because he has been not entirely consistent, but pretty consistent with the kind of shape that he used. And his most successful teams, they used this, people started calling it a 4-4-2 diamond, which he's not the only person who used it, but he was kind of the most prominent example in MLS that used it. So the 4-4-2 diamond. So generally a 4-4-2 is a flat line of 4 in the back, flat line of 4 in the midfield, and a line of 2, loosely speaking. Where the diamond part comes in, it's your back 4 is what you're used to. Then the diamond part, imagine like a square, but then shift it on its side to where it's diamond shaped. And so you have one defensive midfield on the bottom of the diamond, 2 box-to-box shuttlers on either side of the diamond, and then an attacking midfielder at the top of the diamond. And then further forward than that, you have 2 forwards. And so 4, diamond, 2. And so in this shape, one or both of the fullbacks is often pushing forward to give you the width. And then that diamond of 4 players is often staying pretty narrow, like pretty central. And that's where a lot of the action is going to happen, is up that middle part. There's a lot of freedom to move around within that, but it's oftentimes the width is from the fullbacks, and then those 5 guys, the defensive midfielder often stayed quite deep, but those 5 guys forward are doing a lot of the action on their own in the middle of the field.
So when you were talking earlier about the sort of the progression of the ball, so then is it almost always through the middle when you're like trying to break lines or like pushing through lines of this kind of formation, because it's pretty tightly packed?
But that is the default. But different phases will offer different things, and sometimes it means playing wide. Kai Wagner was their all-star left back that was really, really successful in this league for a long time. It would often end with him like going up the left-hand side and playing it across. And I wouldn't be surprised if he led MLS all time in assists for a defender from doing that. But he had lots and lots of assists really consistently from that area out wide. But it was often charging up late where a lot of the action was happening in the middle. Then you spring it wide to Wagner and then he puts it back in.
All right, I get that. And also, was it high school? We played a diamond in one in zone in basketball. So I'm very familiar with that particular setup of like your tall guy in the back, two people in the wing, one guy up top, and then somebody floating and covering the best player on the other team. So that like makes a ton of sense to me. So now maybe talk about personnel. Like what personnel best succeeds in that kind of system?
Yeah, so I think there are several players who I'm not entirely sure exactly what role they'll play, but I feel pretty good about them being able to fit in somewhere that makes sense. And I think I'm going to call it the front three. So let's say that attacking midfielder and the two forwards. Brandon Vasquez, I mean, he's a pretty versatile striker anyway, but he can hold up play. So those long balls, you'd back him to be able to bring it down and hold up while other players get up around him. He can also run in behind. He moves well. He's really intelligent. So I think he'll fit in quite well here. Facu Torres, I think will suit it well because he's a really smart guy. He doesn't mind running. I think this is going to be a thing with this type of coach coming in, is like the dedication. We heard Curtin talk about it in the press conference. Like the data is going to expose people. And Facu Torres is a guy who will run, he will work, he will commit himself defensively. So I think he's going to do well. And I could see him fitting into a couple of roles here where Daniel Gazdag was that number 10, like the point of that diamond. I think Torres could slot in there where he's playing as a quote unquote number 10, but acting as much of a goal threat as he is a playmaker, where Gazdag scored a bunch of goals in that system playing that specific role. And then I could also see him playing as like one of the front two, where they've used a more mobile, almost like an attacking midfield player in that role as well. So I could see Torres in either of those. I think Owen Wolf could fit in a few of these roles as well, where Curtin used Quinn Sullivan as either one of those front two, like next to a more traditional striker, or Quinn Sullivan would also play as one of the wide players, like the outside points of the diamond. And Quinn Sullivan's they're not exactly the same player as Owen Wolf, but they're not so different from each other. So I could see Owen Wolf playing as part of that too. I could see him playing as one of the wide mids. I could also see him playing as that number 10, and maybe Facu being in the two forward line, and then Owen being that 10 below him. So I think there's a few combinations that those guys would fit in pretty squarely into this system.
Well, let me go back to a structural question then, because we feel like in the history of this team, one of the things that we've lacked is like the creative playmaking, and it's always been a 10 that people talk about Austin not having. So like, where do the chances come from in this system? Because it seems like what you're saying is that is not as much of a necessity at this point anymore, given the way that the club plays.
Yeah, it's not. The chances come from the system, and you need guys who know where to go, know where to be, and then can finish off the chances. So you're not relying as much on that traditional string puller. It helps if you have guys who can do that kind of work. And I think Torres is a guy who can do it to a degree. He's not going to be Carlos Heel level where he's dictating every little piece of play, but he can do it well enough that if the play is going in that direction and he has momentum behind him, he is smart enough and talented enough to make these runs, to play little balls, and then also to get on the end of other things, because Vasquez is a decent playmaker for a striker as well. So, it doesn't rely on that type of player as much, which I think will suit Facu Torres.
Yeah, and then we talked about him, or I talked about him a little bit earlier, but I feel like Christian Ramirez is a guy that probably thrives in any system as long as he's not a 90-minute player. But it seems like this is a thing he can do.
We saw him in Columbus where he was playing as a winger essentially, so he's super versatile, really smart. He doesn't have the legs, so that's going to be like minus points for him, but he's a willing worker. And so I think there will be a place for him while he's here. Who knows if he makes it to when Curtin actually gets here, but in the system,
yeah.
I think there's like a role-playing role for a guy like Christian Ramirez.
Okay, before we maybe go on to who doesn't fit, is there any other players that you wanted to specifically highlight? How about the on the back four, like the width? Do you feel like anybody that's really, really well suited for that's currently on Austin's roster?
I think Rosales and Dessler are both set up really well here. I talked about Kai Wagner being a really key piece flying up that left-hand side. Joseph Rosales, I would imagine, would slot into that role pretty well here in a way that Guilherme Biru would not be suited as well to this. I'm not saying he can't do it, but I think Rosales is pretty well suited to it, to where he can play the transition game both offensively and defensively, and has the motor to get up that left-hand side and be an attacking threat and to give width on that side. So I think he's pretty well suited. I think Dessler is well suited as well, where, again, just transition game, he's so good both ways, where if we're setting up in that, like, having a solid rest defense shape as we're attacking and being ready to defend transitions, Dessler's really smart about that stuff. And then sneakily athletic enough to, like, his recovery runs and like chasing guys down in the back line. He's really good at that kind of stuff. So I could see him being really useful here as well.
Well, then how about the center backs? Like with the center backs that we have in Austin right now, I mean, is there anything differently demanded of them than they have to do in the moment? And then do you see Heinzike and Svatox seem to be the two that are really getting a lot of minutes? Like I said, John Bell, but that, like,
I think
how do you see them slotting in?
The speed aspect could be a problem. I don't think they're perfect fits, but I don't think they're like really terrible fits either, where they can both play a little bit of a ball forward. Neither of them are superheroes at it, but they're okay at it. They do okay pushing forward. They do okay in transition, but neither of these guys are going to be all-stars in this position. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that's a spot that they try to upgrade in the long term, but that's who we have right now. I think they'll do well enough. I don't think we're going to MLS Cup with those guys necessarily in this system, but I think in the meantime, they're good enough.
Okay, well, let's go on to the other side of this then. Like, is there anybody that particularly does not fit well with this kind of system that is currently on Austin's roster?
I think I don't want to sound like I'm picking on guys, but I think it is more of a system thing, where I think our deeper midfield players, in the way that they're awkward in almost any system, are also awkward in this system, where those good Philly teams had a guy named Jose Martinez, Venezuelan player. He was a monster. He covered so much ground, won a ton of balls, and could progress the ball as well. He plays for Corinthians in Brazil, and they think they sold him for a few $1 million or whatever. So he was really, really good. Ilya can't play that role. He can't cover the ground. Duber Sarski, I don't think he's ready to be such a load-bearing piece of a system right now. So he has the athleticism to run around and make plays, but they asked Martinez to do a lot of like ball progression as well. And we've seen that Duber Sarski is just not great at that right now. So I think he might be the best option we have if this is the system we try to do, but I think he's going to kind of be a weak point if that ends up being the case.
Well, and you kind of brought it up earlier too, with Ramirez. Like, I have not done a lot of time studying who's out of contract or who might have an option at the end of 2026 for 2027, but that's probably we know that's a greater opportunity for turnover than there is in the summer. So some of these may not matter that much because, like, the guy that's going to fill that spot maybe isn't on the team at all.
Yeah, that's true. Although I would like to hope that they are trying to implement some of this stuff in the next 6 months. I know it's not going to be 100% there without Curtin actually here, but I would hope they're trying to inch their way that direction.
Well, certainly that would make sense for the players. Like if everybody's auditioning for a job, you would like to think that you're auditioning for that job in the new systems you're going to be expected to play in 2027 just to prove that you can do it, or prove that you can't, just on the side of the club to know that the club might need to move on from somebody.
Yeah. One other guy in the deeper midfield is Dani Pereira, where he is a guy who's hard to fit into a lot of systems because his skills are strong and his deficiencies are weak, and it's hard to put him, you need the right pieces around him. And so I think Dani could be okay in one of those wide, the two wide midfielders in the diamond. I think he could be all right there because he's willing to run. He's not asked to be the main defensive presence, and he's not asked to be a pure creator either. So I think he could be okay there. As far as that number 6 role, you could play him there as well. But we've seen that movie before, right? Where he was asked to be the lone 6 and covering all that ground and winning balls there. He's gotten much, much better of it. To his credit, he's worked on it and he's gotten a lot better in that regard, but he's still not Jose Martinez. He's not one of these superhero ball winning 6s, and we don't have anybody on the team who's that.
Yeah, you can count on some yellow card suspensions if you put him back there and expect him to do that.
Or some transition goals.
Or both, probably. Yeah. So how about, okay, so you talked about these two midfielders. How is that different from just having a double 8, 2 8s in a pivot, or how does that look differently tactically?
It is a little bit different because these guys will not just occupy the kind of the center channel of the field. They're asked to move quite a bit, and there's a lot of rotation and freedom around there. So there's positional awareness they have to have, but also a lot of work rate. And so that's where I think Dani could actually be okay in that role, and Owen Wolf as well. It's motor and smarts, and then depending on the guy, being able to play certain skill sets. So they use Jack McGlynn in that area when he was there, and he's more of a distributor kind of player. But they also used Leon Flock, who was more of a pure 8, he could defend, he could progress the ball, and they used Alejandro Bedoya in that role as well. So there's kind of room for some individuality there, as long as you can do the intangibles and kind of the work that is asked of you. And so again, Dani could fit there. I don't think you could play Dubrsarski there. You couldn't play Ilie there. Sabovic, I don't think he runs enough to play there. So it gets thin quick. I think we have a couple of guys who would be okay there, but not much more than that.
Well, then one more question I have, and then I'll let you, if you have any other comments you want to make on it. But what about a Brad? Does that change the way he plays? The expectations for the keeper? Especially in terms of how Brad's worked on being obviously a ball stopper, but part of the offense, part of the attack going forward. Does that play well into that, or does it matter?
It will change what he does, but I think it doesn't. If anything, maybe take some of the pressure off of him playing out of the back and having to be a distributor. They're not going to do that as much. I'm not going to say never. Who knows what Curtin's going to do when he actually gets here, but based on the past, it will be less playing out of the back, dropping it back to the keeper, asking him to open up the field sometimes.
Beat guys with his feet, which is super stressful. Yeah. Yeah. Is there anybody else you wanted to talk about before we take a break and cover some more news?
Yeah, Jaden Nelson. And by way of Jaden Nelson, pretty much all of our wingers, where it's tough to, if this is the way that Curtin's going to play, it's hard to find a role for a guy like Jaden Nelson in this system, because Philadelphia did not use wingers when Curtin was there, and he was there for a long time. They pretty much never used wingers. So they got the width from those fullbacks pushing high or those wide mids floating wide. But it's Nelson is a smart enough kid. I think he could do some of that rotational stuff. But then talking about the defensive work and kind of the box-to-box shuttler work that you're asked of, I don't think that suits him very well. I think Nelson is good enough that you find a way to fit him in. So given what the roster looks like now, and that part of that roster is a young kid like Jaden Nelson, who is so talented that you have to have him on the field, maybe all this gets blown up and he finds a different way to fit these guys on the field. But in this specific system that Curtin was so successful with, there's not really a spot for Jaden Nelson. You could maybe put him in as part of that front two, but those guys have often been guys who can play with some physicality, like a little bit of like striker tendencies. And then the wide midfielders are a bit more like workmanlike, more like number 8s than they are wingers. So yeah, it's tough to find out where he's going to be. So that'll be interesting to see how they handle that.
Well, I guess on the other side of that, like Austin's decently positioned because we just talked about the buyouts. Like, bought out 2 wingers this year already to free up some more space. Like, could you see Jaden Nelson playing some as one of the wide fullback spots? Because I don't think he's done that before, has he? Okay. He's not Joseph Rosales.
So they did I think in 2024, which was the year that they were bad and the year Jim Curtin got fired, they played a back 3 where it was 3 pure center backs, 2 midfielders in front of them, and then wing backs wide. So it was like a 3-4-1-2. So it's still 2 strikers, an attacking mid, 2 deeper mids, but the width was still coming from fullbacks who were still asked to track back and defend. They were not cheater wing backs where that's actually a winger. No. They were fullbacks. They dropped back and defended. So I think for that reason, Nelson doesn't really fit in there. So you could maybe play him as like that 10 attacking mid. I think he'd be okay. I don't think it takes advantage of his gifts. I don't think playing him in the front 2 takes advantage of his gifts. So I don't really know what the answer is.
Oh man. Okay, is there anything else you want to cover on this one before we take one more break and cover a little bit of news?
Yeah, I think I'm good. So yeah, I'll be curious to know if we do start seeing these changes now, and if we can, maybe Davey Arnaud comes out and over this next couple of months, they are implementing some of the principles, but in a shape that makes more sense for this set of players. Like I could see that being what ends up happening, and then maybe all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, this is where Jaden Nelson fits in. So that's what I'm hoping. But it could be a thing where, oh, we can't actually do Jim's thing right now, so we're just gonna keep doing this other thing until he gets here.
Yeah, which I think back to the question we got originally that we asked Andy Loughnane, like, why should we care? I think definitely for us sickos, if they were starting to implement some of these new ways of playing for the second half of 2026, like that is something that everybody would care about. And I would think even like for your casual fans, seeing some preview of what the team might play like in the future would make it worth watching, but we may all be just wish casting all this and look really stupid when September comes around and there's a Nico Estevez system with Roto's players out there on the field just trying their darn hardest to try to make it in the playoffs.
All right, let's take another quick break. We're going to come back with the rest of the Austin FC news of the week. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Sage Wilson Realty. Look, I'm watching 104 World Cup games. Landon's watching 104 World Cup games. We got 208 hours plus half times plus hydration breaks to cover. If you're also trying to sell a house, it's too much. Don't think about it on your own. Call our good friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Let them help you out. Eric's probably watching soccer, but he's way better able to multitask than the two of us, so he can be like a killer realtor and a soccer fan at the same time.
He'll always pause it to take your call.
Absolutely.
The right strategy can turn today's opportunity into your winning goal. If you're looking for Sage Real Estate advice in Austin, contact our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com. All right, we are back. We have a few other pieces of Austin FC news. Jeremiah, where should we start here?
Well, let's start with this announcement we got Wednesday that Austin, we knew this was going to happen, but they announced that there will be 3 exhibition matches in preparation for the resumption of the season between the World Cup break and when they come back. So the first one is going to be Liga MX Querétaro on Friday, July 3rd, Sporting Club Jacksonville on July 8th, at St. David's Performance Center, and then Charlotte FC on Wednesday, July 15th is Q2 Stadium at Q2 Stadium leading up to the return on July 22nd with a home match against Seattle. So those will be the way that the club, everybody gets back in town, everybody tunes up, everybody gets ready to go. I guess the one thing off the top that I saw, I think it was from Michelle from Austin Anthem, is like, if they're going to be closed door, why are we telling people about them? Is it just to like just to annoy fans? Like, they're going to be games, you don't get to see them. You might get a social media clip, but like, why do we announce this? Which I thought was an interesting perspective.
Would we be more annoyed if they didn't tell us about him?
Oh, totally. We're going to be annoyed no matter what. That's fair. That's fair. If like Audiace found out it was going to happen and he was like in the Verde store watching an unannounced friendly match, which I feel like has happened before, and trying to send clips back.
Yeah,
for sure.
So looking at these opponents, Querétaro is currently, or they're in off season right now, but in the Apertura, the last season that just finished, they finished like mid-table in Liga MX. So an okay Liga MX team, which is still pretty good by MLS standards, probably. Sporting Club Jacksonville. If you're thinking, I've never heard of that team, it's because they just started existing this year. They're a new team. And looking at their roster, I was like, oh, do I know any of these players? I do, because Antonio Gomez, who was an Austin FC draft pick and played for Austin FC 2, he is on loan to Sporting Club Jacksonville from Austin FC 2. So he's still technically an Austin player, but playing there. And then Harvey Neville, who is Phil Neville's son, Phil Neville's the coach at Miami, where Harvey played, and then Phil left. And I think Harvey went with him for a bit and then was not re-signed or something and is now playing in USL. But Phil Neville's kid is now playing for this team as well. And then Charlotte FC is in 6th place in the Eastern Conference. So varying degrees of competitiveness, but it should be a pretty good lineup for warming back up to the MLS season.
Yeah, I'm interested in the Querétaro one. Like, I guess because they're in the offseason, they also need the training too. And assume that gives him probably some experience in the U.S. before the Leagues Cup kicks back up in early August. And then the other thing I'm obligated to say is, like, my friend Emmy, who you have met, her whole family's from Querétaro. So
okay.
There's like that connection. So her grandmother and uncle and aunt and sisters will probably all be cheering for the other side of that. I don't know like where she'll fall on it, but like I feel obligated to mention it since that team doesn't come up very often in our conversations.
I thought you did. I was like, Jeremiah nailed the pronunciation there, but you had an in.
Yeah, I've heard about it for years, for sure, man. Yeah, looks like a beautiful town. Okay, then we get, I think we mentioned this before, like Austin FC 2 is still playing during the break because nobody from MLS Next Pro is probably in the World Cup, so this is still going on. On Sunday at Palmer Field, they defeated Sporting Kansas City 2, so now they sit first in the Western Conference. Just as often happens with MLS Next Pro, there's like differing amounts of games that teams have played. So I think they played maybe 3 more games than the Houston club has played. But if you look at points per match, which is how they calculate their table, they're still in first. They're having a good season. Yeah, this is a good question. Like, should we be excited? Because like Roto apparently didn't care about how the second team did overall as long as we were preparing individual players. But is there something about this team that maybe makes fans of the first team want to pay attention more than we have the last few years?
Yeah, I think this team is different from that 2023 team that won the championship. In that 2023 team, all of the best players were above the age of 22 or 23, and most
My boy
of them
Sal
were,
Masafero, yeah,
most
for
of them
example,
were
like
foreign.
25, yeah.
And so, yeah, Roto rightfully said, like, okay, that team is really good, but how many of them are playing in MLS right now? And the answer was 0. This team is a little bit different. There's still some of that where we've had endless conversations about Jorge Alastue, and that if he were from Oklahoma, he would have a first team contract right now. Same with Val Noel on that 23 team, but he's not. And so the opportunity cost is too much to sign a guy like that, use an international roster spot. This team that we have here, Jorge Alastue is the best player, and that is still true. And there's still some other guys who are early to mid-20s who are very good players, but we have guys like Micah Burton, who's 20 years old, homegrown, contributing to this team. Irvin Torres, 18 now, contributing to this team. And then one of the most exciting ones, Eric Feliciano, 16 years old, has become like a nailed-on starter on the left wing, and he's playing really, really well. He looks like a guy who not just belongs, not just doesn't stand out, but it looks like a good player at the MLS Next Pro level at the age of 16. And then Mo Badawia, another academy product, 18 years old, playing lots of minutes, getting lots of output from him. So this is different, and I feel pretty good about saying there's at least one or two MLS players on this Austin FC 2 roster, which was not the case for the 2023 team.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you're looking to find a cheap, easy way to take your family out and have a good time, like take them out to Palmer Field and watch some Austin FC 2, and maybe you'll see some guys that you will see playing at Q2 in a few years.
And they are playing through the World Cup break as well. So games are going on now. If you normally go to the first team games and are itching to get into a stadium, that's a good option.
Yeah. And then another option is the Austin Rise, the women's team here. So they are also playing at Palmer Field this season. I don't know if it's a long-term deal or if that's just while House Park is undergoing renovations, but there's a pretty decent, at least among the supporters, group of fans who go out and watch them. And there are home matches for Austin Rise on July 2nd and August 8th before they finish their season. And they also play in that wacky, what's like the 7-on-7 tournament?
Oh, TST.
Yes, they also play in TST. I was reading they're like the only team in their league that plays in both of those competitions. So that's a fun one too. I don't even know when it comes up around again.
I think it ended just before the World Cup started.
Ah, okay.
I think they made it to like knockout rounds, but then were beat. But they did pretty well again this year.
That's cool. And then let's talk about, I've seen all these posts on social media from people going to In Cahoots on the east side of Austin after the big party downtown, which you went to and sweat at. That was the thing that got like the most out of that at Auditorium Shores. But like, have you been following this online? It seems like there's a big crowd. For the Mexico game, there's a huge crowd. It's like people playing music and dancing and stuff like that. But like, it looks like a pretty cool environment from what we've seen and what we've heard from our friends.
I did go to the Auditorium Shores event for the U.S. game, and that was great. It was really, really well done. Austin FC put in resources to it. They hired, I'm sure it was C3 or one of the companies that puts on the festivals in town. It was very pro in that regard. So kudos to them for paying for that kind of thing and making it a good event. But the screen was like the size of a basketball court up against the Austin skyline. It was a really cool atmosphere to watch that game in. And then the fact that the U.S. did really well in it helped as well. I have not yet been to a game at In Cahoots. Casa Verde, I think is what they're calling it. But the social media stuff has looked very cool. I think one of the coolest things I've seen on there is they're doing a good job of attracting people from various communities or various countries to come and watch their team's games there. And so every night it seems like it's packed with a different color jersey and different people from these countries. And so we had some friends. Friend Zach was at the Egypt game a couple of nights ago and said that there's like 50 Egyptians there all hanging out watching the game. That seems like it's been true for a lot of these different teams playing. So I'll definitely try to make it out there. The U.S. and Mexico games maybe seem a little too crowded for my liking, but
same,
to go watch, maybe, I don't know, Senegal or Colombia or somebody like that, where it's like going to be a good vibe, but maybe not packed to the gills. Like that would be a fun one.
Yeah, I don't know how they've done that outreach, but that's true. It's one of the good things about, we talked about this since the start, but like the good thing about Austin is like it's a city that has people from a lot of different places. And the fact that there's been this environment created where the people from those places can find somewhere to get together and watch games is like super. It's great for them, and it's like great for everybody else that's interested in like consuming, not consuming, but like participating in the culture of those communities. I would imagine like Croatia, I would think would probably have an incredible turnout because I know there's a pretty big Croatian community here in Austin.
Oh, is there? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like getting a taste of what's beautiful about the World Cup here in Austin, where, yeah, there's no games here, but you can go and get a taste of that in some of these places. And our friend Mark went to a bar and watched with a bunch of German fans the other day. And like, that's great. I think that's really cool that you can do that here.
Then before we wrap it all up, also Los Verdes is throwing a World Cup watch party with our Copa. This is on Wednesday, June 24th at Hop Squad. Our Copa is an initiative led by Mi Gente Support Community and Working Families Power. It creates welcome spaces for Latino communities and soccer fans to come together through watch parties. Kickoff of this is at 8 at Hop Squad Brewing on the 24th. The first of 50 attendees to check in will get a free taco and a free drink, beer or frozen drink. And I wish that this could be my second RDAce reference on this show, but like I wish I understood Panini sticker trading, and I don't. But if you're into it, you will be able to do that there.
All right. I think that is all, Jeremiah. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, man, let's wrap it up.
All right. We'd like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Come find us on Instagram. Check out the Patreon. Thanks so much for listening. We will be back next week to cover whatever Austin FC throws at us during the next week. And maybe we'll do some kind of game again. I think we're due for a game on the show, so maybe we'll do that. Until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Think for nothings you never.
La gente.
Oh my God.
Because they love cheap boom boom sauce.
Yeah.